Anders Fogh Rasmussen, thanks for joining me on Upfront. You were in charge of NATO when NATO militarily intervened in Libya on the side of the rebels and helped topple the Gaddafi regime 5 years ago this month. Given today, Libya is a mess, divided between two different governments, countless armed militias, financially on its knees, with ISIL, a new dangerous presence on the ground there. Given all of that, do you feel foolish having said in 2011 that the NATO intervention in Libya was a model intervention?
Yeah, because it was really a model intervention. It was a very successful military intervention, a precision operation with a minimum of civilian casualties, a minimum of collateral damage. I saw it with my own eyes on the last day of our operation, but we had to leave on the 31st of October 2011, and we did. And we were not allowed to have people on the ground, so we left. And today, Libya is a disaster, not because of our military operation, but because the international community did not follow up politically.
A recent report by the UK Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee found that the result of NATO's Libyan intervention was, quote, political and economic collapse, inter-militia and inter-tribal warfare, humanitarian and migrant crisis, widespread human rights violations, the spread of Gaddafi regime weapons across the region, and the growth of ISIL. That's on NATO, they say. It's on you.
No, it isn't. I agree with all the conclusions, because...
But it's not your fault.
From the 1st of November 2011, neither the UN nor any other international organization was there to help the new authorities build new institutions from scratch. I can tell you, we received in NATO a request from the then Prime Minister to help them train their new security forces. We responded positively, but when we sent our response, he had fled the country.
You say it all began after you left, the problems, but didn't they start the minute you started backing? As the UK Parliament Committee points out, Western governments and NATO backed all sorts of militias without first checking out who they were. A lot of them were quote-unquote Islamists, jihadists. You backed them.
No, we didn't. We carried out an air operation according strictly to the UN mandate, and we did so very successfully. We prevented a genocide. We prevented that the Gaddafi regime killed their own people. So in that respect, it was a very successful military operation.
You say you prevented a genocide. The UK Committee of MPs concluded in September that, quote, the threat to Libyan civilians was publicly overstated, and, quote, the proposition that Gaddafi would have ordered the massacre of civilians in Benghazi was not supported by the available evidence. What do you say to them?
I would say this is exactly the same attitude that prevented the British Parliament from supporting the Prime Minister Cameron and President Obama when he threatened to strike President Assad of Syria. Actually, you can always use that argument in favor of not taking action, but not to take action is also an action. And often it's more costly than to take action.
At what stage, what precise moment, date, time, in your understanding, in your recollection, did the official mission in Libya go from being protecting civilians in Benghazi to toppling Colonel Gaddafi, to regime change? When did it switch?
Yeah, but we never switched. We protected...
You never switched? So
no.
How did he end up raped and murdered by rebels with NATO support?
The local rebels.
But they didn't get there without your air support, did they? They couldn't have reached Tripoli without NATO air support.
But
could they?
We couldn't kill Gaddafi from air operations. That completely impossible.
Well, you could. You did bomb command and control headquarters yards away from his homes and offices.
Of course, that was according to the UN mandate.
And you wouldn't have been upset if one of those bombs had hit him.
It was local rebels who killed him.
Yes, with your support.
No, we didn't support that.
The British Defence Secretary at the time, as you know, Liam Fogh, said NATO is providing intelligence and reconnaissance assets to the rebels to help them track down Colonel Gaddafi.
Well, they did.
So you did support them? And a moment ago you said you didn't support them.
I think it was a good idea to get rid of a scrupulous dictator.
Okay, so you were involved in regime change?
No, we wasn't.
So it was a good idea to get rid of him, but nothing to do with us?
Exactly.
Even though the Defence Secretary of Britain says that you were involved. The Defence Secretary of a major NATO member country.
Yeah, but
Conservative, Hawke.
Yeah. But I have to say...
Is he not telling the truth?
I have to say, I applauded what happened. But we were not part of it.
Do you applaud the way he was raped and killed in a ditch without a trial?
No,
you applaud that?
But I applauded that Libya got rid of a scrupulous dictator.
The way in which they got rid of him, do you applaud that?
No, we were not engaged in that.
You say that. General David Richards, head of the British Army, you must know General Richards, now Lord Richards.
I do.
He tells the British Parliament in their report that on the issue of civilian protection versus regime change in Libya, quote, one thing morphed almost ineluctably into the other. That's not your recollection?
No, I don't know. I know that in March 2011, NATO took responsibility for that operation. In 7 months, we concluded that operation through air operations alone.
You didn't just protect Benghazi, you went after the Gaddafi regime in Tripoli.
No, we didn't.
Which was beyond the UN mandate.
We bombed military assets as mandated by the UN. And I can tell you that the UN afterwards praised the NATO operation, and this is the reason why I called it a model operation, because I do believe that in the future NATO can act as the defense arm, so to speak, when the UN Security Council mandates it.
And how much responsibility does Hillary Clinton, now running for President of the United States, partly on the basis of her foreign policy record as Secretary of State, how much responsibility does she bear for the mess in Libya today?
But she doesn't bear responsibility for the mess in Libya today.
Well, who does?
Yeah.
Before you said the international community, she was Secretary of State of the world's superpower, the world's policeman, in your words.
Yeah, I said NATO conducted an operation which concluded on the 31st of October 2011.
Yeah.
I had expected, for instance, the UN to stand ready to assist the new authorities, but the UN didn't.
Okay, and I'm asking you, as the US, the biggest supporter of that war, the biggest supporter of NATO, the world's superpower, the world's policeman, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, how responsible are they for what happened in Libya, given they didn't do what you wanted?
Yeah,
they didn't do the peacekeeping and the post-war intervention.
That's quite another question.
Well, it isn't. I'm asking you that question.
Yeah, but and I would like to answer that I think we should learn lessons from the Libya operation as well as
with
other
respect, that's not an answer to my
operations.
question. You can learn lessons. I'm asking you, how much is Hillary Clinton to blame for the mess that you've conceded Libya is in today?
I don't think you can blame Hillary Clinton or NATO or any other.
Who is to blame?
The international community as such, and that is the lesson we should learn, that whenever in the future we engage in military operations, such operations should be accompanied by a well thought through political strategy for handling the post-conflict situation.
And the US government, which you extol in your new book, bears no responsibility for not implementing that plan in Libya.
Well,
I think
it's an unfortunate example that the US did not provide the necessary leadership.
So that would include Hillary Clinton, would it not?
Yeah, it would, but not her specifically.
Not the Secretary of State who advocated going into Libya.
Yeah, but it could also be the President.
Okay.
It could also be the UN Secretary General, the Security Council.
And how about the NATO Secretary General? You personally, when you look at the mess Libya is in today, the hundreds of civilians who've been killed in recent years, the ongoing chaos, you look at it, your conscience is clear?
Yeah,
5 years on?
absolutely, because we started an operation based on a UN mandate. We concluded after having solved that problem. We had carried out that task on the 31st of October 2011. We left as mandated by the UN.
Anders Fogh Rasmussen, thanks for joining me on Upfront.